Okay, so next we have Nigel Mason. Nigel Mason is the head of school in the School of Physical Sciences at the University of Kent, and he is going to present on the School of Physical Sciences experience of student engagement. So over to you, Nigel.
Can you see the slides yet?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Let's get into slideshow. Right. Okay. Thank you. You've done the introduction. So yes, I'm head of School of Physical Sciences at Kent. Just to give you an idea of the size of the school, we cover 3 different areas: chemistry, forensic science, and physics, astronomy, and space science, all of which have a curriculum accredited by various accrediting bodies. We have typically 900 students, 70 modules, delivered by 50 staff. So what I'm going to just talk about in the next minutes is how we took from last spring, when we were a very traditional department in teaching in rather traditional ways, relying very heavily on face-to-face teaching, to the blended online learning. We combined practical courses and workshops, which are face-to-face. That is still a very important part of our delivery because of the accreditation and the skills base that we have to deliver. But we reorganized all our lectures to be online, but we designed them all in a new pedagogical format, which is now uniform across the school. So we're having kind of a large social science pedagogic experiment, because for the first time we're rolling out a process to 70 courses, 900 students and 50 staff. Why did we design the program this way? Well, as a practical based subject, and with the requirements from the accrediting bodies that our students have those skills, we had to include practical provision like the medical school. Fortunately, we'd also had a curriculum review which just finished at the end of last year, but that also put a new emphasis on employment and career pathways, which also stressed the practical elements. We're maths-based subjects, and maths-based subjects are not conducive to self-study. You need to have the in-person delivery in some format where the student is taken through a proof or is shown the maths. It is proven that if you ask them just to kind of read the proofs by PowerPoints or by a book, not seeing each individual step doesn't usually get the message over. The other reason we had to concentrate on is the fact we have a very high proportion of students with individual learning plans. We have a lot of students with a BTEC entry. And again, from polling and work with the students over the last years pre the pandemic, the need for them to have more directed teaching, and that included in self-learning, telling them what we expected of them in self-learning was necessary. So with all those kind of background, thinking of how we were going to deliver in the blended learning environment, the most important thing is we started off by setting up a task force. And this task force was very important because it's continued throughout the year. And it consists of all those key people in the school who are actually responsible for organising, reviewing and doing and sort of leading the teaching. And it wasn't just academic staff. You will also see on the list the laboratory staff, the school administration manager, the school welfare officer, and also critically the marketing and communication manager, because we wanted to start to communicate to our students what we were going to do to them prior to them arriving at the beginning of term. And that was also making use of a feedback and a survey of the online teaching at the end of the last in March. We also brought in experts from the Open University. I was at the Open University for 12 years before I joined Kent a couple of years ago. So we brought in colleagues from there to talk to our staff about online learning, because essentially none of the staff in the school had any real experience of teaching that way. So I'm sorry the next slides were a little bit busy, and it's against my rules for normally having busy slides, but I just wanted to get over the things. First of all, the timetable, the teaching is set to a timetable. So unlike many other schools in Kent, we run all our lectures live, and the students have a set timetable when they are expected to turn up. And as you will see later on, the students really like that. They like a structure. They like to be organised in their week. We organise it in 2 days of teaching on campus. That's predominantly for doing the practical work, and also some problem classes and workshops, where we do problems with the students in a group. And then we have 2 days of online lectures, typically 4 lectures a day. And we kept 1 day of the week free, Wednesday, as far as possible. We started with that because we wanted to also just give the students a bit of time, but we were also concerned that we might run into IT issues with Teams. We might have more staff illness. and we would need to have time in the schedule to reschedule lectures. We also adopted the revision or engagement week in this current week, and also week 19 next term. That had never been done before in SPS. We'd effectively taught straight for 12 weeks. We'd never taken a break. I won't say too much about laboratory practicals, except to say that the one big change for us was we moved away from working in pairs to working as individuals. We also recorded some online demonstrations and data that we could give to the students if we couldn't deliver the lectures face to face. And of course, that's important now because of the early shutdown, where the students are, be going home for December. We also have dedicated staff members for the overview of each discipline's lab programs. So we had to rewrite quite a bit of the lab program for the COVID situation. I really want to spend most of my time concentrating on this, really, which is the format of the lectures. So as I said, we went for the system that all our lectures will be given live on Teams in 1 hour timetabled slots, replicating what they would have if they were in a lecture theatre. But talking pedagogical experience and talking to the OU, and it's already been heard by other speakers, online student attention is estimated to be a maximum of 8 minutes. After that, your attention pan starts to wander and you start to not concentrate. And if you actually ask students, various stages of facts that you presented through a 50-minute lecture, if there are no breaks, you will find that there are periods of time where they're basically dormant. They don't pick up the information. So we asked all the staff to reorganize the lectures into the following format: an 8-minute, roughly, a presentation of some learning material, followed by a 5-minute period of when the students are doing an engagement activity. That could be a calculation, it could be a quiz, it could be a poll, it should be a question on something in chat. And you see we do that in 4 segments, so that makes up the 52-minute lectures. We also asked the staff to start the lecture 5 minutes early and engage in some social chat to engage or relax the class. So, as I say here, often one of my cats makes an irregular appearance at the beginning of the lecture. That's important because the students are becoming a little bit more relaxed, and we tend to find that if we do that, they engage more in the chat and the communication because of that relaxation. But we also wrap around these lectures pre and post material. We've had to remove an awful lot of lecture material. The curriculum review required that. The new 8+5 minutes required that we took out a lot of material that we would other deliver in a straight 50-minute chat. We also needed to structure our students to self-learning, particularly the new students in stage 0 and stage 1, the ones who have just come up from school. So we needed to have a method also to check the student engagement. Online, we can't see the faces, and the Teams isn't really reliable for the attendance record. And some of the students, all our lectures are recorded, so some of them will still study them out of the hour. So we put some post material on afterwards. The pre-material is basically often a revision of topics from previous years. It's trying to say these are the things that you will need to remember before we do this lecture. But in some subjects like forensics, it might be some setting of the scene material, it might be playing a video, it might be historical science of science story, etc. It should be no more than 5 to 10 minutes. And we have organised the day that between 9 and 10, there are no lectures on the days when they have their online lectures. They have an hour to do this pre-reading work for the 4 lectures or so that will follow in the rest of the day. And there's a lot of debate about students getting up, but 9 to 10 was felt to be perfectly reasonable by most of the students, and they have mostly done it. Post-lecture material includes a self-assessment exercise, something to determine if they've gained the learning outcomes of a lecture. So we monitor whether they do that or not. It also means that the lecturer can see if there are questions and so on, which they haven't obviously got, so they can pick that up later. All of that is done on the Moodle page, and the student engagement is monitored, and then it's communicated to the academic advisors. So this week,
2 minutes, Nigel.
We've all got that information and are talking to our students. How did we do it? We briefed the staff on the student on the philosophy in June. We worked on it from September. It was a huge task for the staff, and to do that at a time of reorganisation of the university as well, continuing the research programme. So I really just want to take this slide to really say I'm enormously grateful and have enormous respect for all the staff who have embraced that change. We communicated to the students from the summer what this format would be, what this format would do, and we particularly concentrated on the students coming in who hadn't been A-levels, so we gave them additional material. And we continue to do that. So does it work? Well, this is a complicated slide, but we took a survey in week 7 and we're repeating it now. Basically, the basic message is, yes, it does seem to work. Student engagement is high. The figures are often, if you compare their attendance in online lectures with face-to-face lectures last term, it is often higher, sometimes significantly higher. They love the timetable, they love the structure, particularly students with individual learning plans. We mentioned some autistic students. They need that focus. They prefer, some of them really do prefer the online lectures to some of the face-to-face lectures. They feel that they can ask questions. If they are relaxed, they will ask them verbally, but they will fill in the chat. And also they feel there is some sense of community. There is too much, there is some still things we need to do, too much material, talking too fast. I'm probably just been guilty of that in these 10 minutes. Some of the staff don't answer the questions on chat. Some do overrun the 50 minutes. The problems we mainly have are, frankly, if you don't keep to the plan. We have not cracked, however, problem classes and workshops where we need the over-shoulder teaching. Trying to do that physically online is not working quite as well. Some of the students say 2 days is too hard and would like us to spread the lectures onto the third day, the Wednesday. Other students really like having the free Wednesday, and they love revision week. What's the staff view? It's much harder work than standing in front of the class giving the lecture. It's more intense teaching experience. But they are enjoying the student interaction and engagement. They are enjoying that they are participating more often. And therefore, staff are reconsidering their own teaching style and practice if we were to go back into the lecture theatre. And many more appreciative of what life is like as a student. So as I said, attendance is often good, better than online and in the lecture theatre. Labs, we've often had 100% attendance in the labs despite the COVID. And when they're not, it's due to self-allocating. Finally, our challenges. We've got to keep this going. We've only done it for 6 weeks. We've got another 18 to go. The staff are tired. They've been working solidly throughout the time. We are worried about staff morale and that, and we are still worried about staff who are ill. We are very short-staffed in key areas, and this method is very staff-intensive. And also the other outcome is if we're concentrating so much on teaching, there may be some damages in research. Final slide. How are we going to take this forward? What are we going to learn when we go back into a 2021-22? Should we go back to the old style? What have we learned to move on? And we've got some real key things here, and we've got to think about how we take that forward. We will not go back in the way that we did before. And the live thing is, now we've got this experience, can we widen this offering into other new markets? Like, for instance, we don't do any MOOCs in our school. Maybe now we feel confident enough to do so. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you so much. That was a really interesting talk, actually. And I would just like to echo what you said about the respect to all of the staff in physical sciences. Having worked with a number of them, I know that everyone has been working so hard, as they have across the whole university. So, yeah, thank you to everyone, really.
I don't underestimate that. For a head of school to come in and tell the people in March that all of them, and this is an exercise, as I say, this is not a few lecturers, this is the whole staff adopting a brand new style of teaching and delivering it within 6 months. I do think that is an enormous achievement, and I am, as I say, I'm really, really grateful for how the staff have really got on with it. But it does mean that we are going to have a lot of statistics and a lot of numbers on a big pedagogical exercise. It really is a big experience to review this kind of data. 900 students, 70 courses, given by 50 staff is a big survey.
Okay, we have run over a little bit. We are on time, but I think we've probably got time for one question. I think Dan is going to ask the question, if that's okay.
Yeah, we got a question from Mike Wold again, asking, is it optional or compulsory to engage with the post-lecture material and or assessments?
We make it as strongly mandatory as possible. The post material is in 2 parts. There are some mandatory parts that we say if you don't do it, you won't really know whether you've learnt the material. And then most lecturers put a load of other material on, which is kind of general interest material. It might be videos, it might be other clips. But we do expect them and we do chase them if they haven't done some of that, because that is the way that we want to know whether they are getting the most out of a learning experience. So this week, for example, if they haven't been doing it, we're chasing it and are telling them this week, catch up. And I would say a good 80-90% didn't need chasing. They had actually done it. It isn't huge. It's about 20 to 30 minutes is the recommendation.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you very much.